Even during a pandemic, property values continue to grow in Clark County. Recently, we sat down with Clark County Assessor Peter Van Norwick to discuss how rising property values will impact property owners and learn what types of tax relief options are available.
Hello, I'm Jim Demmer with Clark County Close-Up, and thank you so much for meeting with us. You were actually the first in-person studio interview we've had since the pandemic, so thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Jim. It's a pleasure to be number one.
Okay, well, let's start with a little background information. What is the role of the county assessor?
Well, I mean, the main role of the county assessor is really to protect the taxpayers. We are responsible for what's called the highest lawful limit, which is the most that property or tax districts can collect in property taxes. So that's kind of the main role of the assessor and why it's an elected position. The other roles we have, of course, the one everyone knows is that we then assess property for the purpose of taxation. We determine what the tax rates are going to be. We also oversee the annexation processes, and also there are property tax programs like the senior exemption program, senior deferral, which I think we'll talk about later, which also are managed out of my office.
Okay, so how are property values established?
Well, of course, property values are based upon the real estate market, and as everyone that's out there watching is probably aware of, it is crazy out there. Property values are skyrocketing. And one of the things in the state of Washington is we are required under state law to assess at 100% of market value. And so what that means is when real estate prices are going up, that also means assessed values are going to go up. I guess the good news though is for taxpayers, because a lot of times we will be sending out notices soon. People get the notice, see their assessed values went way up and say, how does that impact our property taxes? And the reality is it's kind of a separate process. If a city says they're going to collect 50 million in property taxes to make it a nice round number, I'm collecting 50 million regardless if property values increase 20% or property values decrease 20%. And so the real impact of prices going up, assessed values going up, is we have a variable tax rate. You're just going to have a lower tax rate, but we're going to bring in the same amount of money. There is no benefit to the cities from higher assessed values.
Okay, so it just will fluctuate depending on
Yes.
whatever the amount you have to collect.
Yes.
Okay, so that gets to it. So it doesn't necessarily, your assessments go up. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a higher tax bill, but it could, correct? If depending on what other neighbors. It's just wondering about that.
Yeah. So since we are bringing in a set amount, in the example I use 50 million. If everyone's value goes up 10%, but yours goes up 12%, all of a sudden your piece of the pie is bigger, so you will pay a little bit more on property taxes versus if everyone goes up 10% and you go up 5%, then some of the property taxes that you may have paid will then be shifted onto the other tax base. So when we're doing assessments, what we're doing always is determining what part of the pie you're paying of the amount that we're collecting. And based upon the percentage change, if you're a little bit more, you're going to take a little bit bigger piece of that pie. If you're a little less, you're going to have a little bit smaller piece of the pie. And so that's really what the impact is of the assessed values.
Okay. All right, got it. So how can someone appeal their property's assessed value?
Well, when you get the value notice and you take a look at it and you say, well, I don't really think it's market, you can appeal. And we do have good news, and that is for the first time at Clark County, you are going to be able to do the entire appeal online. Nice. Through our new appeals portal that we've been working on with the Board of Equalization. So when you get your notice, if you disagree with a value, you can go to the Board of Equalization and you will be able to click on our new portal and upload any documentation that you have that supports that maybe the value should be lower.
Okay. In combination with Washington State, Clark County does offer some property tax deferral and reduction programs, which you mentioned earlier.
Yes.
What are some of the deferral programs? How do they work, and how do you qualify?
Well, I mean, the deferral program, and I think the income level is 57,000, right around 57,000 that you need to make, and then you need to qualify as either senior or disabled. And with the deferral, what you're really doing is you're really taking out a loan for those property taxes. And so if you do have a deferral, that does have to be paid back at some point in the future. But the state pays the taxes to the county for you and then puts a lien on your property.
So once you sell the property, you would
Once you sell the property or the person passes, the estate will need to pay those property taxes.
Okay, so now let's talk about the property tax reduction program, not deferral, reduction. How do they work, and who can qualify?
All right, so those are what are known as exemptions, and we do have the senior exemption. And if you make 50,000 or less, you do qualify, and you're over 61 years of age, and you meet all the requirements. You can qualify for the senior exemption program. And with the senior exemption program, it is an exemption. You don't have to pay any of the excess levies at the first level. Excess levies are those that are voter approved, like school levies. You don't have to pay the state schools Part 2. You're also avoiding that. Your property value is frozen. And so when everyone else's assessed values are going up, your property value is frozen. And then as you go down the income, lower incomes, there's actually 3 levels. The second level, you get a little bit off of your regular levies by reducing the assessed value. And then on the lower level, you get even more of a reduction in your assessed value, meaning you pay even less on the regular levies. So you avoid the excess levies at all levels, and then on some of the levels, you're even then being exempted for some of the regular levies. So it is a big savings for seniors and disabled veterans and people that can qualify for that.
So does your department, do you help them, people figure out if they are qualified for this program?
Yes, we work with people every day. We also do have an online portal, so you can completely apply for the program online. Because a lot of times we have seniors that maybe their children are handling their finances, and maybe their children lives in California or Arizona, but they have all the documentation, so they can go online, they can file all the forms, they can upload all the tax documents, they can upload everything we need and handle it completely online. So we do have that senior portal to help people do that.
Okay. How has we were talking before this interview, how did has the pandemic impacted your office?
Well, as I was mentioning the senior portal, we also have, prior to that, we had implemented a business personal property portal, and of course now we have the appeals portal that we're rolling out. It really saved us because we came online with our portals just as the pandemic was hitting for our senior exemption portal. And what that really allowed us to do is when employees needed to stay home, we had a skeleton crew in the office that was inputting everything into that portal, and then my staff was able to continue working throughout the entire pandemic from home, getting the work done. And really what we found out through this whole pandemic and having people work remote, there's actually some positions that work really well remote. Like our entire commercial appraisal team, they are remote workers now because they're mainly on their own. They have their set group of commercial buildings, commercial land that they're doing, and they really don't do that much interaction. And a lot of that work now with the portals, with all the online tools we have, that can be done at home. Also with the residential appraisers, we sent cars home with them. And so they can just actually leave from their house, go out there and do inspections. And it's a lot faster to go from someone's house directly to the field. And we've really just seen that it actually made us more efficient. And so we were able to really leverage the technology and learning about the benefits of remote work to really keep the office moving forward.
Oh, good, good. So let's talk about what is the joint lobby,
All right.
and how have those services changed?
All right, so the joint lobby is a joint lobby between the assessor, treasurer, and auditor's office. And in our joint lobby is all the employees that work in the joint lobby are deputized by the auditor, treasurer, and assessor. And so and we're all cross-trained. So if someone comes in with, it's mainly properties issues that we're dealing with. So when someone comes in and maybe they have questions about assessment and then they want to pay property taxes, one person can handle that entire transaction. One of the things that we did is when the joint lobby was basically shut down because of the pandemic, we actually moved to an appointment type of a process. And one of the things that we found out with dealing with the seniors and the senior exemption, if we actually made appointments with people and we could communicate with them ahead of time all the documentation that they would need, that also was a lot more efficient. So we have really moved to a model now where we're what I call personalized enhanced services, where people call up, they make an appointment, we tell them, here's the documents that you need, and then when they come in. So that is another thing that has come out of it, is we really kind of were able to hone in on what is the most efficient way to serve the taxpayers. Of course, if people want to call in, that's always available.
Okay, well then that's our last question. So if people want to find out information, schedule appointments, all that, where can they check?
Well, they can go to the website, clark.wa.gov, go to County Assessor, and right there we have where you can click on it to either see the Property Information Center, apply for the senior exemption, or schedule an appointment. Like I says, with the senior portal, a lot of people can just do the applying right from their home and never even need to talk to us, upload the documents into the portal and do that. But if you do have questions or you need some help, then you can just schedule an appointment and time to come in, and we'll take care of you.
Or area code 564-397-2391. It's great to see how you guys adapted during the pandemic.